couple more minutes. I'm just waiting, make sure everyone who wants to join can. Hi, everyone. We'll get started right now. I think a few more people may join us. Welcome. I'm Lisa Kleinbub, Executive Director here at Regional Center of the East Bay, and I'm going to share my screen and share a PowerPoint, and then at each section, I'll introduce our panelists that we have, and people are doing different parts of the PowerPoint and talking, so it's not just me talking today. So let me share my screen. And whoops. Me. You still didn't get that, did you? Okay. Sorry, usually this works much better, but something went down with that. So let me. I am wondering if one of my panelists could share the last one I sent. Lucy, do you have that? Could you share that? Or while I get this up, let me see. I'll go into my email and get it. Sorry, everyone, for being slow about this. We're so reliant on technology, and then when it isn't right there, let's see. Now everyone can see it, right? Okay, thank you. So today we're going to talk about just a few things that are really important as we move into the winter season and seeing more people being at home more, and that even includes because of the wildfires we're facing. So I just wanted to give everyone an update on COVID-19 reports in our area. We currently have 98 confirmed COVID-19 cases as of last week, and we continue to have 3 people who've passed away in our area from COVID-19. So our numbers are doing pretty well, and 2 of those people, as I've told you in other meetings, were living in nursing facilities, which are large congregate settings and very at-risky situations for folks. The other things that we still have the restrictions in both of our counties, but I will say that both counties, Alameda and Contra Costa County, have now moved to the red zone, which is a zone in which when people have been in that for a period of time, some school settings are allowed to consider reopening. And there are also the options in the red zone for more businesses to reopen, and both counties are taking that very slowly. But I do believe that they will be moving forward with that soon. So I'm going to turn this over to Lucy Ravello, who is our clinical director here at Regional Center of the East Bay and a nurse, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about flu shots and staying healthy during this season. Thanks. Hi, Lucy.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that's working. Yeah, so Lisa asked me, I'm Lucy, I'm a nurse, and I am our Director of Health and Behavior Services, as Lisa mentioned. Lisa asked that I just talk about a few ways to help provide some tips on staying healthy and preparing for the winter, and we're already in the fall season, but to kind of prepare ourselves for living through this ongoing pandemic. I think we're month 8 now. And also to just prevent, I don't know, it's been a tough, I know, a year for everyone. So kind of just a few tips on how to kind of help you get through it. Hopefully some of this is helpful. And first starting with the flu shot, because flu shots are usually very important to keep us all healthy, and this year they're even more important because of the ongoing pandemic again. And while the flu shots won't help prevent COVID, they will prevent the flu, or multiple types of the flu are typically included in the vaccines each year. And they'll help you stay as healthy as possible, or to avoid unnecessary respiratory illness and your family as well. So as much as possible, if you can, explore resources for finding a flu. I think maybe if you could, can you do the next slide, Lisa? Or do I have to do it? Sorry. Can you switch? Oh, thank you. That'll help. I just talked about how it's important to get the flu vaccine, and then also part of staying healthy is also helping out your community, because it's possible that there may be another increase in people from getting ill, seriously ill from COVID in the fall and winter. And so by getting a flu vaccine and preventing some of that possible illness that will impact the health system, you're kind of helping out your community by reducing the overload or the, stretching that health resource system even more. So we know they're going to be busy, and we just want to prevent them from being too busy and running out of space to help people, or resources, or people, or caregivers. So I know that the flu vaccine is already circulating out to pharmacies now. It's early, but it's already October. I almost said September. And so there are multiple ways you can find a flu vaccine. I think that starting with your doctor's office is a good place to start. Or if you are familiar with the local pharmacy, typically pharmacies will carry flu vaccines as well. And you don't need a prescription. You can usually find resources. If your health provider has a website, you can find flu clinics that way. If you don't have health insurance, or if you don't know where to go, or don't have a current primary doctor, you can also go to both of our counties, whichever county you live in, public health department, because they've got a whole page on their website devoted to flu clinics and where you can find a flu vaccine. And I've posted some of these websites, Alameda and Contra Costa's websites on here. And I know that Contra Costa is, in the month of October, they've got a number of free flu clinics that are available to anyone who wants or needs a flu vaccine. So those are some good resources. Okay, enough about the flu. And now another way to stay healthy or kind of prepare yourself for a winter during a pandemic is to keep moving. This may seem like I'm preaching. I have to remind myself to do this every day as well, whether it's walking a dog or just moving around, dancing around if you feel so inclined, or yoga, stretches, anything that you are physically able to do that is some kind of movement is great, because there's been lots of studies recently about how our mood is impacted by movement. So our body and our brain are very interconnected, of course. And I just gave an example, like we know that if you're not feeling great, you're feeling depressed or upset, you don't feel like moving much. But the opposite is true too. When you're moving more, it can affect your mood, improve your mood, and hopefully reduce those feelings of anxiety or depression that I know that everyone is in the midst of, considering everything that's happening these days. And then there's a little tip about just the movement. Any kind of movement can help reduce the anxiety and hopefully make your system less reactive and upset and agitated. So any bit of these activities I listed here will help. And there's so many videos now that are free on YouTube about how to do any of these things if you've never tried any of them, like yoga or any kind of martial arts. You know, just there's so many, and then there's videos and things that you can dance around to or just play music, and very low tech options as well. Walking outside when we have air that is of a good healthy quality to walk in. And I think you get my point with this. So I'll move on to the next slide, and that's talking about taking care of your mental health that I just touched on. But another way to do that is by checking in with friends, family, neighbors, even humans, as often as you can or feel up to. Really helps our mental health by kind of just feeling like we're not in this alone. We're all in this together. I know you've heard that a million times, but it is true. We're all trying to do our best to survive through the pandemic and all the environmental issues that are going on, and the political scene, and just social injustice. I mean, just you name it, it feels like every kind of catastrophe is going on at a different time of the day. But the more we check in with our friends, our family, even if it's by a phone call or FaceTime or seeing someone, you know, in a socially distant, safe way with coverings on your face and taking a walk when it's safe again. Those are all great ways to kind of boost mood and kind of help you persevere through this pandemic. And then there's also, if those aren't options, you know, friends, families are, that there may be people that are causing you some stress, you can also look to health insurance or online again for some mental health support, or to check in again with a provider that you may have received support from before. Because there's now so many options for telehealth or virtual therapy online, phone calls. There's even apps that I've been playing around with, some different apps that you can check in for free with someone, just to say, like, how's it going? I'm not feeling that great, and just get a little bit of, you know, even though you're not talking to someone, it may just be the boost that you need to help you make it through the day, or get out of bed, or feel a little better in the midst of all of this. So last point is just reaching out for help and connecting with your community or your support groups. Also, that's another way of feeling that support from your community. I know there's several out there with parents groups that can definitely help just commiserate with our community on how to survive through all of this, and how to kind of maybe getting tips from others on how to make things work better for you on a daily basis. And I think next slide, I think I'm ready for that. Oh, and this is just talking about making your living space work for you, more user-friendly, if at all possible. I don't know if everybody's already gone through this early in the pandemic, but it might be a good idea to kind of take a look around again, make sure that your space is, you know, free of things that you're not using right now or you don't have use for. kind of creating comfortable living spaces with light and air when we can open the windows again. I wrote this before the smoke came back, so it's not totally up to date, but as soon as that air quality is safe, open the windows and get some fresh air and light in, so that kind of helps boost mood and helps, you know, helps us be a little more productive or more easily focused on what we're trying to get done. All the many things that we're all trying to get juggle on a daily basis. And so I just put a little tip about, I always try to remember this, is not trying to work or participate in school in bed if at all possible. Just kind of have a separate space from where you sleep to where you work or attend school, just to help with sleep and also productivity during the day, so you don't take a nap. But I know this makes me think of one of my daughter's classmates is always in bed during class and is usually napping during class. So I'm not sure how much is getting absorbed through sleep, but I think of that tip when I think of him. And then the last tip on this slide is just to kind of lower expectations. I talk about this with my friends, is no one's doing their best work or life right now. We gotta set the goals to meet the times that we're in. There's so many challenges that just making it through the day, surviving and doing our best is, I feel like, a reasonable expectation right now, given what we're going through. And then I just have one more slide, almost done, guys. That is to prepare for possible outages. Lisa wanted me to put this in there just because that's another reality we're living in, is the possibility of power outages or just emergency planning in general. But I just wanted to list a few good resources with PG&E, their website. They're really trying to boost their outreach and support to the community after all the wildfires we've been through over the past years. There is quite a bit of info, and I just wanted to note those here in case you weren't aware that you can sign up for alerts on their website. There's the link there. You can also apply to be part of a medical baseline program, which just means that if you or your loved ones, your housemates rely on power for medical devices or mobility devices, there's a long list of things that qualify you, but there's an application on their website. And if you do qualify for this program, you qualify for lower energy bill rates, which is always helpful. Also, they can give you even more advance notice if they know that there may be a power outage in your area, and you type in your address or your zip code, and they can give you alerts by phone or text or email, however you'd like it, and just give you that extra notice. Also, there's a program that they have now through some of the community-based organizations like community independent living centers, that you can apply for a free backup battery for equipment if you're on this baseline program, and if you're in a high risk area for wildfires or even severe weather or power outages. Any of those things would qualify you to be a candidate for one of these backup batteries. So they bring out the battery, and you could use that in a power outage for some of your supplies. Maybe not the whole house, but it would help. And that's a great opportunity. So it's all free to apply. And also I've seen that they've waived the MD prescription requirement that they used to have for this program due to COVID and the difficulty in getting that completed. So it's not a bad idea to go to PG&E's website, look for the medical baseline tab, and complete that online application if you can. Or also, I've sent a lot of this information out to case managers to share with families. And so if you have questions or if you have access issues, let us know through your case manager so we can figure out a way to help you through some of these applications, because I think it's helpful to have. There's also a lot of trainings available in the community right now, online trainings again on emergency preparedness. And so I just added a few more things about emergency supplies. And it's not a bad idea right now to have a bag or 2 or 3 ready to take with you if you can, if you're going to need to leave or head to a hotel or something, if it's a power outage or something else going on, with flashlights and money if you can, and keeping a full tank of gas in your car is not a bad idea these days either. If you have a car or know where to get transportation or calling for a ride. So those are kind of just a few quick tips. Hopefully I'm not talking too quickly for all the translation, but I think I thank you for listening, and I hope that everyone can take a little time to take care of themselves, or at least put a list together of things that you'd like to do when you have a minute to kind of prepare for the coming months and to really take care of yourself and your loved ones through these difficult times. So thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. I'm going to turn it over now to Ronke and Elvia, and they'll be talking about most of these slides, but I just wanted to mention, I'll go through this slide, about there are a number of changes going on with our service delivery models, and providers who aren't providing traditional services during this time will be and should have reached out during this month to you to discuss alternative service delivery. This includes and maybe respite providers, daycare providers, day services, independent living skills. And we shared a lot of the details about this in our September 18th community meeting, and the PowerPoints are, and I think the recording of that is online. So you can go back and look at that for further information. And so now I'm really turning it over to Elvia and Ronke. Can you unmute? Let's see. Okay, good. You're unmuted. Thanks. Elvia or Ronke, you gonna?
Oh, Elvia is going first.
Okay.
Okay. So in the next slides, we'll be addressing, first, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Elvia Osorio Rodriguez. I'm the Associate Director for Children's Services here at the Regional Center, for those who don't know me, for those who don't know, yeah, me. So the next slides will be addressing children participating in remote education. We'll be talking about what supports can be what can be provided by Regional Center, what is the school district's responsibility, and we'll also be addressing early start extensions. Ronke, did you wanna? Oh.
No, go ahead, Elvia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for children.
Well, I can.
Okay.
I apologize. I'll just mention that the part that Elvia was going to address is the early start extensions, and that was a directive that Regional Center of the East Bay received regarding children that we were serving in our early start program since March. And if they aged up at 36 months, and typically they would transition to the local education agency, the local school district for services, but those were not always available right away or in the time frame that was needed. And so in those cases, the directive did authorize us to continue whatever services were currently in place while we worked through getting the transition to the school districts. It's my understanding that that's working so much better. These days, the school districts have, it's been 6 months now, so they are now working directly and transitioning our 3-year-olds to school as they should in the timeframes that are required. So If for some reason this comes up and you're not getting responses from the school district, then please let us know, let your case manager know, so that we can help to advocate in moving your child along to the school districts, and then to consider what we might do in the interim. Thank you.
This you, Ronke?
This is me.
Yeah.
So for adults, I thought that Elvia was going to do the children first for that one slide,
sorry.
but that's okay. So, but I'll go ahead since it's up. So I'll start with adults who are either residing at home with family, and I just wanted to just give an overview of what we have been seeing these last few months. We did have a previous community meeting that described respite services and day services and those kinds of things, and additional participant-directed services. But what we're finding is there's still, either because the individual residing at home is frail and we don't really want them to be exposed to things that are going on in the community, especially with the risk of COVID and all of that. A lot of our vendors are now, as of September, really operating. They have been remote services. There's alternative service delivery that I believe Lisa mentioned already. But what we're finding is families are still wanting remote services. And when they want remote services, those are now available and have been for a while for day programming. They're also available on some levels for respite, but when you don't want somebody to come into your home, that may be a respite worker who's exposed, who's coming from their family, we do have additional participant-directed services. What this does is it authorizes using a family member who's maybe not a parent or a spouse to provide the same service for respite or specialized childcare, those kinds of things. So if that is something that is of interest to you, just let us know so that we can walk you through what these additional participant-directed services are. They're particular to personal assistance in the home, independent living skills training in the home, and supported employment. For individuals residing in our residential settings, we had to gear up quickly and offer our residential vendors the opportunity for adults to be vendored for in-home day programming, because while they were used to having the residents at home, from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock through the end of the day, and on the weekends, everybody, as we all were, now needed to be at home in the residence, and we needed to make sure that they were engaged. So our residential providers did have the opportunity, and still do, to get vendored for in-home day programming. This is another service that they are now providing providing additional supports in the home. Then for our adults who live independently on their own, in their own apartments, in their own homes, away from family members, they continue to receive independent living skills training or supports, as well as supported living supports, depending on what the services that they had previously. We're finding that, of course, for the most part, for supported living, they need the hands-on, many of those individuals will need the hands-on supports in the home. With independent living services, we're finding that some of our vendors are able to do some of that support remotely. And generally, independent living services deals with budgeting, with laundry, grocery shopping, paying rent, and those kinds of things. And so some of that our independent living service vendors have been able to do remotely, walking people through, have you paid your bills? What are you going to be cooking? And that kind of thing. Some of it requires some in-person. And so all of our vendors, regardless, know that when we are making contact directly with individuals we serve, that we do need to adhere to all the precautions of making sure that we have face coverings, of maintaining safe distances. And some of the vendors are able to maybe do some of this outdoors in the community, so that they're in open, airy spaces where maybe they might have met with the individual in their own home previously. Next slide, please.
Okay. So Elvia?
Hello. So respite needs. Let's talk a little bit about respite needs. So currently, since COVID, since March, no family fees currently are being assessed. With respite, our policies are still being followed. It's still the same. We're still, following the standard policies that we have. And it still includes our respite tool to capture what is in place, where supports are still needed. We're finding during this time that, of course, many families are needing additional respite. And similar to what Ronke mentioned as far as alternative services, um, one of the services that is different in children's in terms of using alternative personal services is that most of the families already have a respite provider through a vendor, and so through our employment of record process, EOR, in other words. And so they have continued to either use those, extend those, or if in fact they don't want new people coming into the homes, one of the things that they've also optioned to do is maybe have a college student, one of their older siblings take care of a younger sibling. So they've been vendored through EOR, through the EOR process. So we haven't needed to use a lot of the other personal, the alternative services model that Ronke was mentioning for adults. I want to get the language correct. So what was that? With all the new vocabulary that we're using, Ronke, what was I just want to make sure, the additional participant directive services, that's the language I want to use. With the children, we haven't needed to use additional participant directive services so much because our families already have providers in the home. And so, like I said, they either extend those services with those vendors, or they elect to bring on, a family member, maybe an uncle, an aunt that is in their bubble to come into the home and provide more services. And you can imagine that, during this time, during COVID, we have had exceptions. And what are exceptions? That's any service request which exceeds our policies. They're reviewed as exceptional, as exceptions. And then during COVID, we've had many that have been reviewed and extended to allow families to fill in the gaps, to get more hours so that they can receive more additional respite. And just to define respite, intermittent breaks from the constant care and supervision for a family member. So yeah. Next slide. I think that's
Okay, I think that's the end of the slides we have. We may have left one or two out, but Elvia, do you want to talk about the fact that when children aren't in school right now and are doing remote learning and parents are working, the kind of supports we can put in?
Absolutely. So prior to COVID, just to give you a background, RCB was never able to really provide specialized childcare during school hours. But during COVID, we have been given those directives that we can. And so families have had different situations going on in the homes. And well, case managers are having to look at those situations individually, seeing what kinds of supports are actually needed, what has the family plan, consisted of during this time. Many of our families have been displaced, have moved out of the area, or have moved in together. And so every family is looking different these days, right? And so on top of that, with the remote distant learning, families are struggling to figure out how they're they're balancing that out with also having to maintain their job responsibilities. So it's been a very difficult time. But with the opportunity of being able to assist families during this time, the hours are assessed through, again, following the same policies and procedures that we've had all along in terms of for specialized childcare for children. Parents have to show that they're working. So they do need to verify that they are employed. They do fill out a worksheet to show the gaps or the needs for specialized childcare during this time. And then doing that, they are able to obtain additional hours that helps the family out during this time.
Okay. Thanks, Elvia. I'm going to stop screen sharing now, and I'm going to move to questions that people have asked in the chat, and I'm going to read the questions that are here. And I do see someone wanted more information from DDS, and I will tell you that we shared the information we had up to the September 18th. And right now, today, we are waiting for additional information from DDS. Two things: frequently asked questions about alternative service delivery, as well as information written for consumers and families. And we're expecting, from what they've told us, that that information will be coming out next week. And I think it will be helpful, but feel free to ask questions in the chat. If you are someone who was receiving day services or receiving ILS, and your provider is planning to offer alternative services where they're not actually going to deliver the same services you had before, but other services, they should have met with you during the month of September to talk about that. If they didn't, we will be having case managers follow up with them to find out what is going on. But at this point, those providers were to reach out to people, talk about alternative service delivery. And in the month of October, those providers who are planning to provide alternative services are supposed to meet and develop an individual plan, which should identify exactly what services, what times those will be delivered, and kind of how much will be delivered as well during the time of alternative service delivery. So more of the details should be coming in the next few weeks, in the month of October. There's a question here: if day program is not able to provide alternative services other than Zoom, what are my alternatives? And I think this is where, if you don't feel like the alternative services that are being offered meet your needs or your individual family members' needs, please let your regional center case manager know, because there are other providers who may have other alternative services that may meet those needs. We have been asking providers to think broadly about how they can support people. And I think it's important at this time for individuals and families to think about what it is that would support them at this time. Ronke, did you want to say anything about that?
Yes, I did want to chime in to say exactly what you just said, which is we understand we're still operating based on an individual program plan based on what you need for what your son needs. So let's talk about what would best meet the needs, what would be the next best thing, and see how we can meet those needs. The service codes that were generated by DDS to kind of do personal assistance. Sometimes that might be something that might be useful to you. If you know of somebody who could be available to do certain things under independent living skills training would be, or under personal assistance, a program that you can try to devise in the home. Is it that you need something at home? Is it, so we can look at what would best meet the need And then let's see how close we can get to doing that. We may not be able to do it 100% if what you want is 6 hours of somebody to come in and do some work directly at home, but we might be able to find something else. So we'll have to do a lot of exploring, but we do want to engage in that conversation with you and see what is possible.
Yeah, and I just, Stephen Dale has a follow-up to that. Even though the demand is present in in-person services, the day programs aren't moving in that direction. And I think that is something that is changing. Our day program providers have been meeting weekly to talk about ways in which they can begin to re-enter and reopen. However, they are challenged by some of the requirements by community care licensing, if they're a licensed site. They are also challenged by some of the county health guidelines. And so what we've been talking with them about and what they've been sharing with us is starting to think about, well, if we can't serve someone at a day program site, what can we do? Can we put someone who works at the day program to provide individual supports for a couple of hours a day to meet some of the need? It won't be the same as being at a site where you have a 1-to-3 ratio. You won't be able to provide the same number of hours, but we're really kind of pushing to move towards that, following appropriate social distancing practices. And I think it varies as to what can be done depending on the individual's particular needs. Can someone wear a mask? Is someone really able to get out in the community a lot? So I think there's a lot of challenges, but I think there are also many providers who want to try to meet those challenges, because we do know that Zoom isn't working for large numbers of people. It works for some, but it doesn't work for large numbers of people. And you'll see the school districts will be prioritizing moving children with special needs who need pretty intensive services to schools. And we are encouraging day service providers who have folks who have more intensive needs to be the first group that actually moves back to site-based when that's possible, because those may be the folks who can't do things outdoors and that sort of thing. The other question I saw in the chat was a question about institutional deeming and Medi-Cal, and what I'm going to do with that, and I don't know, Edit, if you are translating on that or not, but Medi-Cal through institutional deeming is a way that Medi-Cal can be provided for children whose family income is higher than the usual Medi-Cal limits and who meet certain skill requirements in the law. And so what we can do is we can set up a separate webinar in the next few weeks to talk about both the Medicaid waiver, which brings in federal funding to the regional center system, as well as institutional deeming and what that means, because it is something that we really encourage, and we should, it provides a lot of support to families who wouldn't normally get certain supports and have family members who have more needs. And so we can definitely do that. Let me see if there's any. So I don't have any other questions in the discussion. Does anyone, if there's anyone who wants to raise their hand and ask a question, happy to unmute you and do that. Otherwise, I'll give it another minute or two and we can close down for this, but I will tell you that on next Wednesday at 6 p.m., we will be having a public meeting to share the outcomes of our performance contract for the year 2019. Seems like a long time ago, but this, if you're interested, this would be a great time to listen to some of what we did in prior years, and to start thinking about feedback to give us on performance contract objectives for 2021, which we will be developing throughout the month of October into September. And so if you are interested, you can check the link that Michi put on our webinar, and we will do that. If you email us as well, we are providing translation and ASL interpretation, but you have to let us know in advance so we can get that scheduled. And I think today's the last day to notify us. And I know that we took some information down for someone else who asked a question. So let's see, there's another message here. Oh, I think that's Michi. So there's a question, is RCB planning to distribute PPE to families in need? So we have received a lot of PPE, both through the Department of Social Services and through the Department of Developmental Services and the State Council offices. And we have been distributing the PPE to a number of service providers. We've had some drive-through distribution for PPE for consumers. And we also have given each of our case managers PPE, and if you have a need for additional PPE, which includes face shields, masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer, please ask your case manager. They're happy to deliver that to you and provide you with what we have. And we are reaching out and letting people know that as much as we can so we can get that to you. So that's a great question. And I see someone wanted Cantonese and Vietnamese interpretation for the October 7th public meeting. Michi will follow up with you on that, and specific, we need specific individual requests for that, so we'll follow up on that. And thank you. I'll just wait a minute. And then someone else asked about more stress, mental health type meetings in the near future. We can consider doing that and maybe announce them in a different way. I'm going to try to do a couple of these meetings as well at maybe 6 p.m. at night. So alternate the times, because I know we get certain people at this time of day, but we may get other people at other times of day. So we definitely want to include everyone in our meeting. So thank you. Thanks for joining, and look forward to seeing you in another couple of weeks. Bye-bye.